Hi there, welcome to our customization studio video for February. So today I'm going to be tweaking the rainy day activity kit. Now, as a reminder, all of the templates that you're receiving in the membership now are our minimalistic ones, and that makes it super easy for you to hit the ground running and put your own flavor on these templates. But if you want a done-for-you one that you can get up in your shop really quickly with no customizations at all if you want, you will also get this. So I'm going to show you some of the changes that I am making, and then we'll go from there. So the first thing I almost always do whenever I'm working with a template now is I will either go to one of my own custom GPTs and ask for a color palette or font suggestion, or if I'm in a real rush or I'm messing around on some other AI platform, I may just go into a regular chat. And the reason I do this is because at the end of the day, it isn't a life or death situation, but unfortunately, I know how I work and I can fall down a huge hole of indecision. And I will start debating and I'll pick a font set and then I'll change my mind and then I'll change my mind on the colors and I'll go back and forth and I'll start searching sites, and I can spend the better half of an afternoon just looking at different color palettes on all these different websites. So I've learned that I need to cut that off at the pass, and it actually feels so much better to just know that decision is going to be made and I can move forward. So I've already asked Talia for some recommendations with regards to the font and palette. And before we move on, I just want to mention one more thing. I have a whole lot of custom GPTs, and I have a lot of GPTs that I've received from other people. So even I sometimes get my own GPTs, and the ones that I use all the time, their functions and their names confused. So one thing I always keep on hand, and I just pulled this up so I could show you, was this AI product studio layout. I believe it's in the dashboard. I'll double check and make sure you have it. But I pull this up a lot of times just so I can double check that I'm pulling the right GPT. Now, another thing is our Gigi 2.0, your implementation GPT. I'm also working on her to make sure that she understands all the GPTs that you have. So if you have a question about which one you should go to, you can turn to Gigi as well. But again, I always pull this up and when I'm creating and just have this off to the side because it'll remind me which GPTs I need to go for. So for instance, with regards to Willow, she's really whenever you're creating from scratch. And then Izzy is your template innovator. So she's whenever you want to repurpose this. So for instance, if you're looking at the rainy day activity kit and you want to repurpose it for fathers or maybe grandfathers or, something totally different, you could go to her and she can help spin more ideas out of it. She can also help you come with bundle ideas and all kinds of fun things like that. But Talia is your template stylist, and she's the one that's going to help you with fonts, color palettes, and design elements like graphics. So she's the one that I pulled up first, and I just asked for a color palette and a font. Now, one thing that I also let her know was the kind of tone I was going for, the mood. And what I requested was a boutique cozy palette. So here is what she provided me with. This palette right here. And I have to be honest, whenever I was first thinking of doing this rainy day activity kit customization video, in my head I kind of envisioned going for really super bright colors. But I was kind of glad whenever I put boutique out there, this is where she led me, because I think this is just a really pretty high-end kind of palette to go with, so I'm excited. So what I did was I went ahead and I duplicated this page right here. And as you can see, I don't have this locked down, this background, but whenever I start creating where I'm going to be moving this around a lot, I go ahead and I lock this down. So all you have to do is right there where that padlock is open, you'll just click it. And what that does is it allows you to move elements on here without it grabbing onto that and also shifting that around, which just makes it a lot easier. So I'm also going to group this now that I have it. And actually, I'm also using, these are the fonts that I chose, Bellu and Poppins. So I'm going to group all of this together, and I'm going to make myself another copy, and I'm just going to put it right here for now. Now, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll keep grabbing this copy right here and moving it to each page as I work, and it just makes it easier for me to double check the fonts or the colors without having to scroll all the way back or without having to set up a palette inside of this section over here of Canva. Now I kind of started looking through for the graphics that I wanted to choose as well. Sometimes if I had the entire graphic file up, I would get tempted to use way more than I wanted to for a particular project. So I went ahead and pre-picked the basic ones I want to use. If I want more later, then I'll go and choose them. But again, this is a way that I've found to rein my own brain in so that I'm not constantly second guessing and just wasting a lot of time playing around with the graphics and the fonts and the colors, because that can really derail your use of PLR. The whole reason that you buy templates in PLR is to save time. And if we're going to devote enormous amounts of time to second guessing ourselves and falling down holes, rabbit holes of looking for different graphics, then there was really no point in us buying that PLR template. We might as well have started from scratch, and we've just wasted money and wasted a lot of time. So with that said, I knew that I wanted some simple things. I wanted to go with rain boots, clouds, and the leaves. So from here, I'll probably just go and change my fonts out, my title fonts first. So I'm going to start there. Now, whenever I originally changed these on the page that came with the template, so up here, whenever I changed the original font to, when I changed this bright retro to Baloo, at that point I could have chosen to change all throughout the document, and that would have simplified things. But because I knew I was going to be showing you in this video, I didn't. But let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm just going to go up here and I'm going to tell it that I want to switch it to Baloo. And then you see right here, it asks me if I want to change it all. So I'm going to go ahead and click yes. And then my secondary font here is going to change to Poppins. So I'm going to go ahead and switch that. And again, I'm going to choose change all. And let's go ahead and take a look. Now, once we change the font, most of the time we're going to have to go through and I'm just going to move that up here. Most of the time we're going to have to go through and make sure that our alignment is still right, because if we chose a font that is much denser or taller or wider or whatever it is, it can sometimes shift around all that alignment. So we just want to go and do some fine tuning there. Okay. That looks good to me. I'm just going to move this so it's in the center. Okay. Okay, all this looks pretty good to me. Okay. All right, now another thing that I'm going to do from the get-go here, I'm going to play around with that a little more in a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and change all of these dark, bold fonts to the navy. And that's just to soften everything up just subtly, and it kind of, I feel like, goes along with that boutique feel that we have. So let me go on up here again. And I'm going to just grab our navy hex code. And on this one, because we have so much black in here, I can't just choose to change all. So I'm just going to go here and I'm going to go through each of them, the titles, and do that. And I'm going to pause this for a minute while I go through all of them so you're not watching me go one by one. Okay, so I'm back. I went ahead and I changed all of the title fonts to that navy color, and I actually ended up changing pretty much all of the black to that navy color because I just liked the really kind of subtle change it made. It just made it a little softer, and so I decided I preferred that. So I went ahead and changed all of this stuff as well. Another thing I ended up doing while I was away was I changed the background to a really light beige that was in my palette right there. And I just think that makes it look a little more like we're talking about the boutique high end. Now, granted, some of these, like on the charades, the parts that I left white are actually what the customer is going to cut out. But we want the product to look nice when the customer gets it. So sometimes I make decisions that aren't always super practical in terms of that they are going to end up probably trashing all of this part around here. But it's going to look good when they open up the activity book once we make all of our other changes. So for me, that was worth it. Now, I know a lot of times people are really worried about creating products that require too much printer ink. And the beige isn't a super heavy ink color or anything, but in my experience, sometimes my products that actually have the most color and backgrounds, not necessarily brightest, but the most colors, are some of my biggest sellers. So I'm not sure if it's just that my particular market or niche isn't as concerned about that, or if it's just the kind of products that I've sold, like for instance, my Santa Prep kit and my Spread the Love Family Activity Kit. Those are all ones that have a whole lot of color and they're really lively, but those have been my best sellers all along. So generally speaking, I worry more about how it looks to the customer when they're looking at those product pages, particularly whenever I'm looking at my B2C sales, not so much with my B2B. A lot of times I do want it more minimalistic and simple because, like we discussed, it's easier for you to customize. But when it comes to my B2C products where I'm selling to the end user, I think they sometimes gravitate towards things that really pop off the page. So sometimes that means the colors. Now, right now we're at the early stages of customizing this, so all you're seeing is the beige. But at any rate, I think it's going to look really good once we put in a little bit of clip art and a little more flavor. Another thing I went ahead and did was I put some more letter spacing in there. I just think it looked a little nicer. We were at a 0 on all of these, and it doesn't look bad, but I think it looks kind of subtly more high end, kind of like changing all the black to the navy to just give it a little more breathing room and space there. So I went ahead and did that. Now let's see. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I did while you were away or I was away. I think that is pretty much where I left off for this. Now, as we go through and do the customizations on this template, we're going to be updating the 5-second game because I'm actually going to want this to coordinate because we're going to drop it into this page right here. Now, another thing I'll be thinking about kind of off to the side as I work, and this is always something that I go back and forth about, is if I want a cover for each section. I'm leaning towards no because some of the sections are small and just a couple of pages. Too many covers and a product just looks kind of odd. I may separate them and sell them as little mini products, but then in terms of the actual activity kit, I personally, for my end user, I think I personally will just want one cover and maybe a cover page as they're going into the coloring pages because that's a little more substantial. I could do a cover and just call it like games or something to that effect. That would make more sense, but I definitely wouldn't make a cover for everything, like the word hunt and for the bingo and for the, then you almost have as many covers as you do pages in the kit. But let's go ahead on over to the 5-second game and talk a little bit about what we might do here. So one thing that I sometimes do, particularly when I'm trying to go for something a little more elegant, or as we've said with this set, boutique, is I might put a really thin border which would go right here on this one. Let's see, I'm going to go for, I want it to be really thin, so let's just go for a 1. And I want it to be our navy color, so I'm just going to come over here and swipe it from right here. And I'm going to go right here and I'm going to put in that navy color and I'm going to switch the black line that I just made to that. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a change all, so what we're going to have to do is change every single card in the pack, which is a little cumbersome, but that's okay. We have some ways to get around it. I want to play around a little here. I don't know. I want to go back over and grab our beige color. I'm being a little lazy. Normally I'd bring over that palette that I had copied and just put it in here, but I'm being a little lazy right now. So if I went with that, we're going to try something really quick. Okay, so that is the white. I'm going to go over here to elements. I'm going to grab a shape. We're going to get a white shape. Then I'm going to play with the transparency here. Actually, I'm going to move it over here so I can actually see how it affects the background. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and put this over it to lighten that color. I could change the palette altogether or change the actual hex code, but I just want to take a look at if I like that as a lighter shade. So I'm just going to play around with it a little bit here. So if I dropped that to maybe a 40, I'm going to position this back so that it's behind the line here. So we're going to go backwards. Okay. I'm going to try one more thing. If I were to I'm actually going to duplicate this. Sometimes when I want to try out something, I just duplicate it so I can compare them. So on the second duplicated copy, I'm going to change that background to the navy and see if I like that. That makes it very gray. Let's bring this down a bit. I actually kind of like that shade, but I feel like it's just too dark for these kids' cards. So sometimes you try something and you decide you don't want to do it. So that's what duplicates are for, right? All right. Now another thing I want to change on this is I want to make our margins just a little bit bigger than they were. Let me see what size this is going to be in reality. Let's put this at 100% so we can get a better feel for the actual size. Okay. So okay. You know what we forgot to do? I did not change my fonts, so I'm going to do that before I start messing with any alignment. I'm going to switch this to Poppins so it matches the other product, since we are going to be selling this as part of the same unit as the activity kit. I'm going to change all. I wonder how this would look in the Baloo. I don't know if I'm going to like it, but let's see. Okay. And we're going to make that navy too. You know what? Okay, I forgot to use change all, so we're going to change all. I'm going to change this to the navy. Actually, let's try this one to the navy. Okay, they're all changed. Okay. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pick out one of my clip art options. Let's go ahead and grab some of that clip art that I had set aside. I think I'm going to want to do one of the clouds. So I'm just going to copy those. I'm just going to paste them onto a blank card so I have them there. I think I'm going to try that one. I actually don't know if I want to keep the clock. Let's see. Like we talked about before, I'm just duplicating it so I can compare it. I'm going to take that out of it. Okay. One thing I want to also do is I like drop shadows a lot and the glow shadows, so I just want to take a look. I'm not sure if it'll work with all those little hearts. It may end up looking messy. I'm going to enlarge it just so I can take a look. Okay, I actually like that, so I think This is going to be our card right here. So what I'm going to have to do is, if this is how I want all of the cards to look, I'm going to use the same clip art throughout it. A lot of times you don't want to use a whole bunch of clip arts because sometimes it can get really messy whenever you have tons of things going on. But it really depends. Of course, every project's different, but on this particular one, I'm just going to stick to the same card all the way through. But because we have to change out all of these, I'm going to do that all at once on my own time. And then we'll regroup and I'll show you more of the changes that I created in my pack. So I will take care of that. Okay, so I went and added the little card title across all of these and the graphic, and I may need to go back and finesse where the clock is, but I just left it where it was for all of these because I think I'm going to take the little clock out. Now, one thing I want to show you before we end the video is I want to show you what I did with these card backs. Now, I've talked about this in past videos and with past templates that you've received. A lot of times what I do whenever I do card packs is I will have every other page. Let me go over here real quick. I will have the alternate page in between the card layouts as being just a solid pattern, a small pattern that will look good whenever the cards are cut out as the back. And the reason I sometimes do that full page back is because if people are cutting sloppy or whatnot, the back will still look fine. But there's also the thing where your printer shifts just a teeny weeny bit whenever you're printing a two-sided thing. And if you're printing a full page two-sided thing, you don't notice those minor little shifts that can happen. But when you're printing something like a card deck, it can become very noticeable whenever there's some slight misalignment. So sometimes, just to avoid any kind of customer issues or any kind of frustration for my customers, I will go ahead and do that full page layout. There are a couple of other ways you could do it. You could just do a large square graphic or pattern and just have it a little larger than the size of all 6 of these cards, and that would also kind of cover you. But in this case, because I know a lot of you prefer to have like a page just like this with the front and then a second page with the backs, I want to go ahead and give you the way that you prefer to do it, but that's just how I often do it. So when you go over here, you will see that the last card is a back. And that's because you're going to download all of these as PNGs and you're going to drop them right into this template. So you really only need one back template, one back PNG whenever you go over to this side. When you get to this card back right here, all 6 of these are going to be the same graphic, unless of course you want to alternate colors or something like that, and that's totally up to you. Now, I was debating whether or not I wanted to keep this particular card the same, but let's go over here and take a look at that palette again. I think that we're going to be okay. I think we're going to be okay sticking to that same back that I had. Now, of course, if you want to go and change it because you're using a different palette or whatnot, by all means, go for it. But let me just see how this looks. Yeah, see, that color looks really nice. Let's enlarge this a little. We've got our 3 blues here. We've got this kind of gray blue, the medium blue, and then we've got our navy blue. And I think this particular card back looks really good. So I will probably stick with it for mine. Now what I might do, because I'm not super wild about this clock right now, is take it and duplicate this and just drop it onto here. And maybe that might be part of my back of my card. I don't really like how cartoony that looks against kind of the realism of this pattern. So I may even take it out altogether. I'm going to need to think that one through. I put a drop shadow. I still don't particularly like it. I may look for a more realistic clock if I want to go this route for the back, or I may put some kind of logo that represents the game. So I'm going to spend a little time debating that, and whenever I add the fully completed template back into the membership, you will see what I ended up deciding. And I do want to show you one thing real quick that I did with this back, because I think it's something you might want to try with the digital patterns that you got this particular month. So you have a full set of patterns that have almost like this raindrop look, and let me actually change this for you. So this set 47 transparency, this, let's see, this is actually the paper you have. You see it's not transparent at all. It's got these purples and this turquoisey color. So what I did, because I wanted to kind of add a lot of dimension to it, is I also took this one that we had in the membership. Let's see. So I took this and then I layered it with, I wanted this to be lighter. So I added a white semi-transparent. So this was a fully white when we started shape. And then I brought it down to around, I think it was 47 a minute ago, but let's do 40. So it would still bring through that pattern. And then I put this one on top. And again, right now it's not transparent at all. There's no opacity there. So then I brought that one down so you could see a little bit of everything, and I left that at 47. So I really like how that looks, but you can play around with some of those papers that you got this month, whether it be with this project or another one, and play around with the opacity, with the transparency whenever you see any kind of pattern that has like a texture to it. So like these raindrops to me are a really strong texture. You've got some fabric patterns like linen and things like that last month, I believe. You could play around with that a lot. But so there's some fun things you can do if you just get creative and start thinking of other ways to use the digital papers that come inside the membership. So like I said, I'm going to go through and I'm going to make some more changes on my time so you don't have to watch, but I just wanted to kind of show you what direction I was headed and give you some ideas for how I will be taking care of things. Oh, I also need to go through and change these margins because remember on that first card, we narrowed the margins a little just to make it look a little more high-end, give it a little more white space, which I think looks really good. All right, so once this is done, I will pop this into the membership and it's yours to use how you'd like. Thank you.